Was he gone for a while? Yeah. Cool. For 2 weeks. Oh my gosh, bless your heart. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would have been a nightmare. I had no idea you had that going on. Just sit in the backyard and let them push it out again. Like, sorry guys, I gotta study. Oh, wait, I did not know that you were going through that. Did you tell me? You should have told somebody about that. Let's go up here. I want us to I'm good. How are yeah, vacation on Friday, so then I went home with the kids. So much, and so much fun. These are some of my
Had to go out the winter days.
I'm okay. I don't think I can find it.
Good luck getting back.
An extra napkin for that. Underneath her plate. use mine to clean off my shirt. Thank you. Everybody wants that back.
And I'll get a drink, huh?
I didn't try the potato, but I love the seasoning, so the dressing. Okay, and then
Number one.
We made 2 trips around
Long cars down
they are behaving very well. Yes, we just started our summer semester. We had a little break, and now we're graduated the first class that I started with. So like my first class. No, I mean most of it. But I would say half of them are just like graduated kind of my first course. So that was fascinating time. Oh yeah.
Okay, everyone, please grab the food and have a seat. Please grab food and have a seat. Okay, we need to start in next 2 minutes, so please make sure you grab your food and have a seat so we don't delay our guests. They've been here for a while.
When the cable jump at you.
Test. You can have a couple of chairs over here.
Okay, that's pretty good. Pretty powerful.
Okay, so we will go ahead and start. Thank you everyone for being here. I wanted to introduce Dr. Majid Khalid, but it looked like he does not need any introduction. You can see how many people showed up. We've never had a crowd this big ever, so no introduction.
Thank you very much. The advantage of giving an allergy lecture in May is pollen count is high, so everyone's interested. So this is going to be a very informal talk. It's a combination of some information about allergies, asthma, and environmental triggers. If you have any questions at any point, don't hesitate to raise your hand. Generally, when we think of allergies, we try to think about the triggering allergens. And in our society, we classify them as, for asthma and allergic rhinitis, we classify them as indoor and outdoor allergens. The majority of indoor allergens will be familiar to you, such as dust mites, cockroaches, cats, dogs, mice, rats, and mold. We'll talk about each of them in a second. In regards to outdoor allergens, it's mainly the pollens, the grass pollen, weed pollen, tree pollen, and of course molds. Molds can be indoors and outdoors. So in asthma patients who are sensitized, allergies will flare up your asthma. We have many patients who have asthma that flare up only once a year. The rest of the year they don't need any medicines. Why? Because their asthma is allergic, and whenever their pollen exposure exceeds a certain threshold, they will flare up. So, as you know, allergen exposure will increase your asthma symptoms. Persistent exposures will lead to the airways being hyperreactive, twitchy, and that will manifest as coughing and shortness of breath. So if you have that phenomena happening, you may also end up in an asthma attack. This is when people start using the rescue inhaler, the albuterol, repeatedly, and it's not working, and they end up in the urgent care, the emergency room, or even in the hospital for prolonged periods of time. Now, also if you have persistent asthma, meaning you're someone who's an asthmatic and needs medicine every day, your asthma symptoms will go up if you're exposed to the allergens. And all of a sudden, the medicine that you've been taking the whole time has not been enough, and you start flaring up. So for those patients, based on their allergies, we recommend step-up therapy. So you may be someone who's taking one puff of your medicine for so long, and during the period where you're exposed to your allergens, we tell you to take 2 puffs. Or if you're taking a medicine of a certain strength, we'll tell you during your period, take a stronger medicine. This is called step-up therapy to prevent these flare-ups. So in the US, about 60% of cases are attributed to allergies. And when we look at labs and things like that, there's a certain way to interpret them. And for my physician colleagues, the specific sensitization is more important than the level of the IgE that you may measure. And also to note that more than 80% of school-aged children with asthma are sensitized to more than one common allergen. Today someone asked me, why is that? Most of you who are my age or older, that's 50 and above, will think back and say, when I was in elementary school, I had one allergic kid that I know of, or maybe not even any. Now 1 out of 4 kids in class is truly allergic, and 80% are sensitized, meaning at risk of allergies. This is because we're clean. Being too clean is not good for the immune system. Being dirty is good for the immune system. Stop using Lysol. And when you get a cold, don't immediately go for an antibiotic. Let your immune system work. So when you see your pediatrician arguing with you that they don't want to give you an antibiotic, believe them. It's easier for them to give you an antibiotic than to argue with you why they don't want to give you an antibiotic. So dirt is good. That's the conclusion of today's talk. If you look at this, there are ecological considerations that you have to think of when you think of allergies. If you have increased humidity, you will have increased dust mites. If you have increased dust mites, you will have increased cockroaches, because if you have also food sources. And if you have more food sources, you'll have rodents. And if you have more food sources, you're going to have furred pets, such as small foxes and other things like that that may get to the rodents. And if you have more humidity, you'll also have fungi, which the furred pets can also bring with them from outside. So it's all kind of linked, and there are many triggers that could cause you to have these. So in North America, the most important cat allergen is called FeLD1. So when we fix allergies, we fix it with the allergen that's strongest in that animal. So when we give you allergy injections, we give you small doses of cat epithelium for you to increase your immunity. In regards to dogs, it's called Canis familiaris, CAN F1. Rats, dust mites, and other insects. So you see they're also their Latin names. This is what a dust mite looks. Of course, it's not visible to the naked eye. So if you all look below you, you have a carpet. There's tons of these walking around in the carpet. They mainly live in your bedding, in any upholstered furniture, a lot in stuffed animals, and in the carpet. So for them to live, all they need is humidity and skin. This is why I tell all the ladies that have long hair that are allergic to dust mites, don't go to bed with a wet hair, because then the dust mites have a party. So the other thing that's very important is humidity. The higher the humidity, the more dust mites flourish. Going back to the hair, not a problem in my case, but as you know, you have to be careful. If you get exposed to very little dust, you may get sensitized. If you get exposed to a lot of dust, you can get sensitized. Medium exposure is good. We go back to the cleanliness. If you're too clean and you have just a little bit of dust mites, you will get sensitized. If you're super unorganized and you have clutter everywhere and you have high dust, you will also become allergic. So there's a fine balance there. And of course, as I mentioned before, if you have allergies and you're exposed to a lot of dust, your asthma and allergies will flare up. So what do you do to decrease dust mites? So I always tell my patients, fixing allergies is simple. 1, don't be around what you're allergic to. 2, take your allergy medicines. If A and B don't work, we go to number 3 and do allergy shots to fix it for you. So in regards to dust, your first line is something called dust mite covers. Dust mite covers are woven fabric that is so tight that the dust mites can't go through them. But they're also zippered. So you put the mattress in it, you zip it, and then you put your bed cover on top of it. You put the pillow in it, you zip it, and you put the pillow cover on top of it. So for any one of you, if you're interested, they're available at any place. You go to Target, you find them. You go to Walmart, you find them. You're on Amazon, you find them. You'll find them everywhere. And those are, they last forever. You buy them once, and that is the dust mite gel. If you have a pillow, a foam pillow, that is 5 years old, how much of its weight do you think is dust mites? Let's take a poll. Okay, that will make many women not sleep tonight, but that's good. Take a guess. Dr. Iftikhar, I'll pick you.
How much weight? It's pretty heavy. So
How much of that weight is dust mites?
10%.
50%, correct. So if you weigh your 5-year-old pillow, 50% of that. So I said that to my wife once, and since then, every year she buys new pillows. I should have kept my mouth shut. The other thing is you have to wash your bedding. So washing the bedding is very important for dust mites, because remember what we said, they feed off your skin. So if you have skin that you don't see in bed, and you have humidity when you lay there, and you have heat, so they will multiply. So you have to wash the bedding, but the trick is you gotta wash it above 140 or put it in the dryer. So most of us bring down our thermostats a little bit in the heater because we don't want our kids to end up with a burn. Because if you have kids and babies at home, you turn it down a little bit so they don't scald themselves. But then it's not enough, so either hot water or washer and dryer. Okay. The other thing is control your humidity. If you have an AC at home or a dehumidifier, keep it around the 50. If you go below 30 or 40, you will feel very dry. If you're above 70, it will be sticky in the house and the dust mites will flourish. Second line is heavy blinds, stuffed animals, and bookcases. I am not advocating for people not to have books at home, but I'm saying don't have bookcases full. They will accumulate dust mites. Stuffed animals are a big thing for kids. So some kids don't like to separate from their stuffed animals, so you have two options. Either you wash them and dry them, and if you do that, the stuffed animal you put in comes out looking different. The other option is you put them in a Ziploc bag or a regular grocery bag and throw them in the freezer overnight. They'll come out looking the same. So these are the two options you have. So you either freeze the mites or you burn the mites, one of those two. The other thing is vacuuming. Vacuuming is good, but you can't do it when the person who's allergic is around you. Because when you vacuum, you throw all that dust in the air. Now a HEPA vacuum filter will suck that dust, but if not, it will then settle. So you cannot vacuum when the allergic child or the allergic asthmatic is in the house. You send them out and then you vacuum. You gotta vacuum once a week, not more than that. If you vacuum too much, you will stir the dust. Remember, you can always see dust settle. And because dust settles, that is why an air filter does not help. If someone tells you I have air filters at home because I'm allergic to dust, they wasted their money. You know, because dust is heavier than air and it will settle. The next thing that is creepy is cockroach allergy. Now for us here, it's not a big issue because we don't have high rises and we're not super humid. So this is a big problem in inner city, Chicago, downtown Nashville, Detroit, Atlanta, New York, big cities. It's a big problem. But also if you go south a lot, like in Florida, in South Alabama, Mississippi, you'll have more cockroaches. And they'll be distributed out throughout the home without you seeing them, or if one apartment in the apartment building has them, I can assure you everyone has them. So you gotta make it difficult for them to come in and you gotta do the chemical barrier. That's why you'll go around a spring. Generally not a big issue in Evansville, but a lot of people are sensitized because a lot of us go and eat in restaurants, and guess what they have in restaurants? Cockroaches. So this is an interesting slide because we have four things here. Patient not allergic with no exposure, patient not allergic with exposure, and patient allergic without exposure, patient allergic with exposure. As you see, the rate of hospitalizations, unscheduled visits to the doctor because of increased symptoms, or change in their plans because they're having health problems. If you see, the worst thing is if you're allergic and you're getting exposed. So the exposure is important. Now, if you're not allergic and not exposed, or you're not allergic and are exposed, it doesn't make a big difference. It's either the same or a little bit better or a little bit here. But the trifecta where it's really bad is if you have the disease, you're allergic, and you're exposed. You will definitely increase symptoms. The next thing is cats and dogs. What are you gonna do? So in cats, it is in their sweat and in their saliva. It's not the dander, but the dander carries those two. In dogs, it's in the dander and in the saliva. Now, I keep seeing patients that tell me I have a hypoallergenic dog. If I was given $1 for every time someone told me that, I'd be flying in a helicopter. There's no such thing as a hypoallergenic dog. It's kind of like being a little bit pregnant. You either are or you're not. But it is true because the dander plays a role. Small dog, short hair is better than big dog, long hair. Okay? So the moment you have a dog or a cat in the house, and patients try to tell you, well, yeah, but he's only in the garage. Doesn't work like that. The moment the pet is in the house, the allergen is in the house. You can have as much as 100 times the allergen level than outside if you have a pet inside the house. Direct and indirect exposures to cats are associated with asthma symptoms and morbidity. Cat allergen is the strongest inhaled allergen. Same like peanut allergen is the strongest ingested allergen. So what do you do with cats and dogs? Well, the best thing is not to have the cat and dog. But you'll be surprised how many patients prefer to get rid of the kid as opposed to the cat. Most probably because the cat doesn't answer back. But washing the cats and dogs does help significantly reduce allergen. Has any one of you tried washing a cat? Many YouTube videos have been done on that. But again, if you wash them, it's only good until they have the sebum and the sweat again. If you remove the pet from the house, that's the answer. Interestingly enough, the cat allergen, which is the strongest, if you remove the cat, for up to 6 months after that, you can still detect cat allergen. This is assuming you're doing a wet vacuum once a month. So it can linger even longer. So as I said, first line, don't have the pet. Second line, find the pet a new home. Third line, keep them outside all the time. Then isolate it from the bedroom. Then air cleaners and wash pets regularly. Not all of these work to the same extent, but at least if the dog is part of the family, then this is what we recommend. So the next thing is rodents, mice. Again, a bigger problem on farms and in inner city. They do have a tendency to multiply a lot, and the biggest problem there is the urine. So with cockroaches, interestingly, you're not allergic to the cockroach, you're allergic to the feces. So the cockroach goes around, poops, and that's what you're allergic to. Here the mouse goes around and pees, and this is what you're allergic to. So it is a big problem, and you really have to eradicate. Here the urine will trigger asthma in two ways. One as an irritant, and the other as an allergen. So rat infestation is really big and a big issue. Not in our area, luckily. So dampness and mold, those are also issues. Because if you have a lot of dampness and a lot of mold, you will have the sinusitis, the rhinitis. So in our area here, there are a couple of older buildings downtown where it is a problem. And you may experience symptoms even if you're not allergic, because those can also function as irritants. So molds and humidity are not your friend. This is general information about how if you have increased mold exposure, how you have increased issues with your asthma. This is taken from one house, looking at multiple places, and how the more you have concentration of the alternaria, which is the most common asthma-inducing allergen in molds, with increase of those levels, you have increase in asthma problems. So, as I said, mold growth indoors will be reduced if you have less moisture and humidity. We all know if you have water in the bathroom, you're more likely to get to see the black mold, although that's not the black mold that people talk about. That's aspergillus. Dehumidification, we're lucky in our area that a lot of buildings have air conditioning. Air conditioning is good, it sucks out humidity and decreases the water content in a house, but also ventilation is also effective. And ventilation has to be through air, so you would open both windows. Opening one window in a house is not ventilation. So for us to fix allergies, we use allergy injections, and it works very, very well. About 97% will have marked improvement. About half will get nearly completely off medicine. and there is a significant improvement in symptoms. And for my colleagues who are from the medical field, the whole trick is increasing IL-10, which is the interleukin that makes you produce less IgE. And the way you do it is by producing IgG4, which blocks that immune reaction. If you do allergy injections, you will also improve asthma symptoms. So again, we're talking about people who didn't get rid of the dog, or did, and they still have symptoms, are using their medicine and still having symptoms, and then we go to allergy injections. Allergy injections do also improve asthma symptoms. So what are our major outdoor allergens? As we mentioned, trees in the spring, grasses in the summer, ragweed and weed in the fall. We also have mold spores, which in our area are mostly in the spring and fall. Pollen and mold counts vary geographically and by season. If you come to see me in my clinic, I test you for what we have in the area. I will not test you for what's in Texas. Like in Texas, they have a lot of tumbleweed. There's no need for me to test you for it because it's not going to bother you, and I'm not going to treat you for it because it's not going to trigger you. Now, there are certain things that are common, like indoor allergens, dust mites, cats, dogs, cockroaches. Those are the same throughout the country. But trees vary. You have northern trees, you have southern trees, you have northeastern trees, and you have western trees. With the grasses, we're at about the line where the southern grasses start. Like in Tennessee, you start having southern grasses. But also here we have 4 seasons, and our 4 seasons are distinct. If you go down to Florida, their year is longer, and their seasons overlap a little bit. The global warming and the increased heat has changed the length of the season. When I started practicing 20 years ago, truly, pollen winter was 4 months. Now it's 2 months. Seasons start sooner and they end later. I used to tell people, if you're allergic to pollens, by October you'll be symptom-free. Now I tell them with second frost, because I don't know when it's going to come. At times it's in December, at times it's in November. So global warming has been affecting that. So as I mentioned, tree pollen, like on your left, are early to mid-spring. In our area, around March 10 to 20th, we start seeing our first peak of tree pollen. And that is the very light film of yellow you see on your dark car in March. The second peak comes here around this time. If some of you have dark cars, you may have noticed that again, you have had a little bit of a film on your car. So May, June, July is grass season. Now the good thing with grasses around here is it gets so warm that the peak is short and then it kind of dries out. So the grass season is shorter. Weed pollens happen late in the summer to early fall, August, September, October. That's where they are. And again, this varies by location. Now, the typical allergy symptoms, I'm not going to go through those. All of you know that. Sneezing, runny nose, puffy, watery, itchy eyes. It's the kid that goes outside to play in the spring and comes back, and you think they've been crying and they need eye drops, and etc., etc. This is what I mentioned previously. It varies by the area where they are. But also different trees will pollinate in different times. So the first one is the birch, below it is the cypress, that comes a little bit earlier, oaks are a little bit later, pine are kind of in between, grasses are a little bit later in the year, closer to early summer, and the ragweed and weeds are later in the year as mentioned, and then the levels vary. You know, when you get rain, pollen goes down, but if you get sun after that, it comes back with a vengeance. There's one thing we need to remember, that the pollen grains are small, but they're not small enough to go into your lungs. So all they need to do is flare up this, and this flares up. I always tell my patients, you can't heat the house if you don't close the window. So even if you're an asthmatic with allergies, you got to treat your sinuses in order to control the lungs. One thing that happens after storms is when you get that rain causes pollen particles to pop and release more allergens. So that's where you get the rebound vengeance. When we do the allergy injections, you improve your symptoms and you modulate your immunity, but it comes at the price. Allergy injections are once a week for 6 to 7 months, and then once a month for 3 to 5 years. The longer you go, the longer it sticks. Within 6 months, you notice a marked improvement. But when you give the allergy shots, you will have small reactions. You know, you'll get redness, swelling, and itching. So it comes with a lot of sweat and tears. This is what we do. We give you increased doses every 1 to 2 weeks, once or twice a week, and build you all the way up until you get to a maximum dose. And once you get to the maximum dose, it's once or twice a month until we reach the 3 to 5 years, and then we tell you, you're good, you should be good for a good time. 90% of people who do the 3 to 5 years never need to come back for allergy shots. 5% are lifers, meaning whenever you stop the shots, their symptoms come back, so they have to stay on them. And about 5% come back later on. What I have noticed, and it's been in the literature, but now I've been practicing long enough to see it, that if you treat a kid in their school years, if they are going to get symptoms again, they get them in their 30s. So I'm seeing a lot of people come in their 30s who had shots earlier on. Now that we're done with the allergens, we have to talk about pollutants, because that's also in the air. And my colleagues who do pulmonary medicine see that a lot. So you have many pollutants, like nitric oxides, which come from fossil fuels, gas appliances, sulfides, which are from heating fuels, coal-fired plants, and other irritants like ozone that will react and cause airway inflammation, which may lead to asthmatic type symptoms. When you have a lot of air pollution, you will have the airway hyperresponsiveness. That's the twitchy airways where you have the cough that I talked about. You will have increased lung inflammation. When you have increased lung inflammation, the sponge in the lung becomes less spongy, and you will have decreased lung function, and you're also more likely to have hospital admission and emergency room visits. Actually, it's shown that asthmatics that live within a quarter mile of a major thoroughfare like the Lloyd or I-69 have increased airway inflammation. Other factors for my colleagues, if you have air pollution, you're going to have more Th2. Those are the allergy type cells. These are T helper 2 cells, and you'll have more production of IgE and more allergies and more eosinophilia. You have certain genes, especially with tumor necrosis factor, that will make you more labile to be atopic. And as I said, increased very high exposures to any allergen will cause you to be sensitized. Automobile pollutants and heavily traveled expressways cause asthma symptoms, which is what I mentioned. DEP is diesel exhaust particles. Those are trucks, heavy trucks. Those inflame airways a lot. People don't realize it, but it's a big problem. Secondhand smoke exposure has to be mentioned. It is really a catalyst of asthma, especially in small children, before the airways are fully formed, and it does skew the immune system lifelong. Passive smoking early in life makes you more likely to flare up from other air pollutants throughout your life. E-cigarettes. These are the lungs of someone who had a reaction to e-cigarettes or vaping. I don't know if you can tell the difference. The one on the left is a normal lung. The one on the right is a scarred lung from vaping. If you think of the lung as an air filter, which air filter do you think puts through more oxygen? The one on the left or the one on the right? This one is all clogged up. That one is good. So whenever you see someone vaping, give them some advice. So as I mentioned, pollution affects climate change. It affects you directly and indirectly. It causes increased inflammation in the airways, and the warming up of the planet gives the allergy season longer time span, so it's a double whammy. Any questions?
How often should we wash our bedding?
Once a week, more than 140
Oh.
Fahrenheit. Yes?
How often you should have the air ducts cleaned?
Never. So cleaning air ducts has not been proven to make a difference. Because the moment, if it was getting into your house, you wouldn't see anything in the ducts. Isn't that right? Actually, the ducts do block certain amount of things. Now, if you want to do that, it's not a bad thing. Just make sure you're not in the house for the 6 hours after that, because then it's getting sprayed. You know. Now, it does make sense for certain large particles. You know, like if you have a dead cockroach there, or dirt which will be trapped from, you know, shoes or things like that. But from an allergy aspect, it has not been proven to be highly beneficial.
In terms of people that do the full immunotherapy course, like, are there a good amount of them that still have to do allergy medicine during allergy seasons, or?
Good question. I always tell people that when you start on allergy shots, you have a 97% rate of success. 3% will either quit because it's too much work, or they will lose their insurance, or they will have a reaction. The 97% that are left fall into 3 boxes, and they're equal. Complete resolution of disease, significant improvement with occasional medication use, and the third box, which is about a third, you still need your medicine most or all the time, but you're not miserable anymore. So it depends on how flexible your immune system is, and we cannot predict where you're going to fall.
Should we leave our shoes outside the house, or we can bring it in?
So it depends what you're trying to do, stimulate your immune system or decrease your allergies. So if you want to stimulate your immune system, a little bit of dirt is not bad, but truly it does increase the allergy. So the best thing is to keep your shoes outside, but don't kill the kid who comes in once every now and then. Scream at them, it's good, but don't make a big issue out of it.
Do you become more allergic as you progress in age?
No, generally allergy is more of a childhood disease, but adult onset allergies are not unheard of. So if you think about it, the majority of adult onset asthma is non-allergic. You know, if you get asthma when you're 40 and after, it's not allergies. It's independent from allergies. But the moment you're allergic as a kid, you stay allergic all your life. It's unlikely that you will lose your allergies. They might bother you less because your airways are bigger and your sinuses are bigger. And that swelling that used to block you doesn't block you as much anymore, but you don't lose your allergies. So if you're my patient, it's me and you forever.
Did I understand correctly that the research is kind of divided on whether or not pets in the home actually reduces the incidence of children being more atopic or more allergic in nature? Because I feel like I've heard some things that, like, oh yeah, having pets is good at helping prevent your kids from developing allergies. But I feel like
It's complicated.
Okay.
You're right and you're wrong and you're right and you're wrong.
Okay, okay.
So yes, having some pets at home is helpful,
Okay, but not
but
like
having too
naturally.
many pets is not helpful. Dogs are more helpful than cats.
Yeah.
And if you combine it in a certain way, the good becomes bad.
Yeah.
You know, because
Okay.
cat allergen is very strong. So as we said, too much exposure is not good. So having 6 cats, you'll end up with a child with cat allergies. Having 2 dogs is better than having 1 cat. You know, there's a guy named Dennis Owenby, and he did all his research trying to quantify that. He retired before he got an answer. But the thing that we got is dogs are better for preventing allergies than cats. But cats work better at preventing allergies, but you can't have too much cat. You know, so it's complicated.
It's fine balance.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think God gave dogs and cats a fur coat so they can live outside.
There's some wisdom to that as well. Thank you.
It used to be, years ago, nobody had an animal in the house. They didn't want it, because the dogs used to let them have to stay outside.
Good idea. If you need a house dog, I got one. I'll give you. I get rid of my house.
Yeah. People nowadays, they have a lot of animals.
That's where my household was.
How will that affect your dust
They
mite?
are work dogs.
If you have dogs and cats, how will that affect your dust mite?
But they're like a good medium dog breed. And the shed lots.
If you have dogs and cats, how will that affect your dust mite? How will that affect your dust mite?
But like all the doodles, the, you know, their low shed. Their low shed.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. It's like, not just for hair.
Hey, here's something. Let's think of this. Think of this. Now, let's say you got somebody undergoing a surgery and they got them cut open.